Back with another Bond review, and today we're going to talk about Live and Let Die, which is the debut for Roger Moore, going into the Roger Moore era, and for me, the first time experiencing Roger Moore as Bond. And I quite enjoyed this movie. And something I thought about too before I get into the film itself and the information, backstory, what have you, and all that good jazz. When I look back at Sean Connery and now we're getting into the Roger Moore era. Sean Connery, I could say, played Bond with suave. Roger Moore played Bond with a smile. Like, he has that sort of wink to the audience. And it shows in his performance. And that's one reason why I really enjoyed Roger Moore. Is that you could definitely say, he's bringing his own performance. He's not trying to be, a copycat or a carbon copy of Connery. He has his own style. He has his own personality. And he has a great personality. But, I mean, you kick off the movie with a great theme, one of the best Bond themes, Live and Let Die by Paul McCartney and the Wings. You get into the story, the plot itself. The film takes place, starts off in Harlem. You have this drug lord named Mr. Big who plans to distribute all this heroin for free to, rival other drug barons and put them out of business so he can create his own, monopoly. And Mr. Big is, which down the road you would see he's revealed as the alter ego of Dr. Kanaga, a corrupt Caribbean dictator who owns a small island called Samedi, now which is a fictional island, where they grow opium poppies and such. And Bond is investigating the deaths of these other agents, and his investigation leads him to Kanaga, and you throw in these other supporting characters like Solitaire, played by Jane Seymour. She's kind of a tarot card reader, which with this movie, they definitely dive into some supernatural elements. And that's another thing that I really enjoyed about this movie, that it really dives into the voodoo culture. It goes into that whole, culture of voodoo and the supernatural. But also, too, you have a lot of, fun action, what have you, Roger Moore. But, like I said, Bond is trying to find out more about Kanaga, and he becomes, trapped in this world of gangsters and voodoo and, trying to put a stop to the drug baron scheme. And you have a nice array of villains in here. I mean, but before I get to the cast, a little bit of information, sort of provide a little info right here, which you can find on Wikipedia. I'm not going over anything new here, but for those who are interested, I mean, again, this is kind of me, watching these for the first time, so I try to provide a little bit of info. But this movie right here was released during the height of the blaxploitation era, and you see a lot of those elements here in this movie, depicted in the film via racial labels like honky. You hear that quite a bit in the film. I mean, you have black gangsters, you have pitmobiles, and it departs from the former plots of the James Bond films. I mean, this is kind of a less conformative Bond movie because, again, you dive into drug trafficking, you dive into the voodoo aspects of the film and the culture, and it doesn't really focus on supervillains as much. And again, you have a lot of blaxploitation themes in the film because there's a lot of that going on in this period. And certain locations used like Harlem and New Orleans as well as the Caribbean islands. And it was the first James Bond film to feature an African-American Bond girl, Rosie Carver, played by Gloria Hendry. And I thought she was really pretty. And I thought she was a great Bond girl. I mean, not a lot of people, I don't see a whole lot of people talk about her, but I thought she was really good in the movie. And it was a success and got a lot of positive reviews from the critics. And its title song was nominated for Academy Award for Best Original Song. And I don't know why I hit my desk. But yeah, it's one of the best songs, best Bond themes. And they tried to get Sean Connery to come back, but declined. And at the same time, once again, they looked at Adam West and Burt Reynolds. And they did this before with Diamonds Are Forever. It's like, why would you go back to Adam West and Burt Reynolds? You've tried this before. But Sean Connery, like I said, he didn't come back. And they tested other actors too, like Julian Glover, John Gavin, Simon Oates, William Gaunt. Names I'm not too familiar with. The main frontrunner for the role was Michael Billington. Don't know much about. United Artists was still pushing to cast an American to play Bond, but producer Albert R. Broccoli insisted that the part should be played by a British actor and put forward Roger Moore. Roger Moore was chosen, and Billington remained on top of the list in the event that Moore declined to come back for the next film. Billington played a brief role in The Spy Who Loved Me. Moore, who had been considered by the producers before both Dr. No and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, was ultimately cast. He tried not to imitate either Connery's or his own prior performance in The Saint, and then it says right here, I guess the writer of the movie, fitted the screenplay into Moore's persona by giving more comedic scenes and lighthearted approach to Bond. And that's the word I was looking for too, because definitely brings that sort of lighthearted performance aspect to the character. Again, where he's kind of winking at the audience a little bit, and again, he's his own Bond. I mean, Connery played it with suave, and Moore played it with a smile. And as far as like budget, the budget was around $7 million. Box office, it made $162 million. So again, like I mentioned before, a big hit. But thoughts, going back over the cast, talk about the cast. Again, Roger Moore, to me, he was a great Bond, and even his quips. I mean, he has a lot of fun quips in the film. I mean, definitely, I would say, Sean Connery did great at delivering quips, but Roger Moore, I think I probably would pick Roger Moore as far as when it comes to delivery of quips and stuff. You have this one scene in the beginning where, and it's kind of like a little line, but he's with this girl, and he has this like magnetic gadget, and he unzips her dress with the magnetic gadget, and she's like such a delicate touch, and sheer magnetism, darling. And then like at the end where he kills the bad guy, which I'll talk about, which was a fun scene, and because basically the Kanaga character at the end, kind of fast forwarding here, but he kills Kanaga with a compressed gas bullet by forcing it down his throat and causing him to inflate, and then he explodes after he hits the ceiling of the cave, which is a really cool scene. I actually rewind that. I'm like, did I just see what I thought I saw? Because for a quick second, I kind of turned my head, and next thing I know I see Kanaga and his inflated self go up to the ceiling and explode. And I'm like, what did I just see? So I rewinded it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, okay, that was really cool. Really fun comeuppance and really cool practical effect there. You could definitely tell it's all practical. And Bond says, yes, he always did have an inflated opinion of himself. So I know I'm probably, not doing too good of a job repeating some of the lines here. But that's just a couple examples of Roger Moore and his quips. I mean, again, he did to me, like, I would say Roger Moore I prefer in that regard. When it comes to the sort of the category of delivering quips. Um, but Roger Moore was good. You have Dr. Kanaga, played by Yaphet Kotto, who was an alien. He's your main villain here as Dr. Kanaga, Mr. Big. Again, he's this corrupt dictator type who doubles as a drug lord. Jane Seymour as Solitaire, who is Kanaga's sidekick and tarot card reader, and then becomes Bond's love interest. Uh, Jane Seymour was definitely gorgeous in the film. I really, she was exquisite. You know, a medicine woman she would go on to do on later. But, I mean, everyone knows who Jane Seymour is. Um, and you also have some other colorful villains here. Teehee, who is Kanaga's primary henchman, who has a pincer for a hand, has like a hook. I thought he was a fun villain. You also have Baron Samedi, who is played by Geoffrey Holder, and he's a henchman but he has ties to the voodoo occult, and you kind of see him throughout the movie. You also have this one character, Whisper, who is also a henchman of Kanaga, and he's this kind of big burly guy, doesn't really say much. But you also have the character of Rosie Carver, played by Gloria Hendry, who becomes a Bond girl in the film, and she's a CIA agent, and Sam Monique. And again, Gloria Hendry was really pretty. Great Bond girl. And again, the first African-American Bond girl. And then you have this other character, this sheriff, that when the action kicks in with the boat chase, this Sheriff Pepper, Louisiana sheriff, who's kind of like, good golly gee. And, like, I thought he was fine here, but, which they brought him back for the next one. The Man with the Golden Gun, because you see his character in Thailand. It's like, how did this character end up here? Like, it's kind of one of those, movie conveniences. But it's like how did this is kind of, what is this character doing in Thailand? But, I didn't mind him here. I thought he was better used here than the next one. But a really good cast. Again, Roger Moore, you have Yaphet Kotto, Jane Seymour, Julius Harris, who plays Teehee Johnson, Gloria Hendry, Geoffrey Holder. Although I would say, that character of Baron Samedi, it would have been cool to see him, like, again, you see him throughout the movie, and then at the very end, you see him perched on the train. But maybe he could have been like the secondary villain. I don't know, it just kind of seems like he's in the background here. That character, because he has such a unique look that I'm like, maybe he could have been, again, sort of like secondary to Yaphet Kotto. But still cool. I mean, you have a good array of villains here. And, good action. I mean, you have some fun bits where Bond is at this, like, crocodile farm, and he has some shenanigans there, which leads into this boat chase. And a lot of great boat chase sequences, and that's where you kind of get these scenes with the sheriff. But the way it was filmed, it was just well shot. A lot of great, again, boat chases. And then you have some scenes later on in the third act where, again, Bond kills Kanaga by shoving the compressed gas bullet down the character's throat, and he blows up pretty much, which I thought was fun. And then Bond gets into a fight at the end with Teehee on the train and throws him out the window. And again, that's when the film ends. You see Baron Samedi perched on the train, and he's laughing into the camera. But I mean, just action. There's a lot of great action scenes in this movie, if I can get the words out. But a lot of great action. Um, and a lot of interesting locations. You have New Orleans and the San Monique, which again is a fictional country, but still the Caribbean sort of setting. Get a little bit of New York. We have Harlem. As far as like gadgets and stuff, I mean, you have a little bit of a magnetic watch, um, which was cool. You have a bug sweeper, and what's interesting is in the beginning you see Bond like he's in his home, and you see an espresso machine. I'm like, they had those back then, um, but it says right here that they were uncommon for home use at this time, back in 1971, 3. And okay, it says right here, sort of, I'll read out the info verbatim, but okay, so Bond has an espresso machine at his home. In 1973, such devices were uncommon for home use. Much as Bond in From Russia with Love had a pager and car-based telephone years before cell phones were invented. Bond made coffee using an incorrect method. But yeah, I mean, again, it was interesting to see that, which I didn't expect. And also it says right here, the producers made a conscious effort to distance the new Bond from the character made famous by Sean Connery, uh, to an effort to avoid repeating the George Lazenby fiasco. Uh, for example, Roger Moore's Bond never orders a vodka martini, neither shaken nor stirred. He drinks bourbon whiskey. The mission briefing occurs in Bond's flat, which you see in the beginning. Um, and the armored Q is dropped from the film, though still mentioned. Bond does not wear a hat. He smokes cigars and not cigarettes. And he's more, of an English gentleman. And more grew into the role, and many of the old Bondisms returned, and some new elements were dropped. But again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Moore brought his own. He brought his own personality, his own persona to the performance. And again, you could definitely say he's having fun, that he has a little wink to his performance. And so, yeah. As far as like a little couple of notes of trivia, I mean, again, well, I didn't mention this before, but in the film you have a character, Coral Jr., and it's supposed to be the son of the original Coral from Dr. No. Uh, and in the novel, I guess, well, okay, I'll just repeat I'll just read off what I'm seeing right here so I don't get confused. Okay. Although never stated in the film, the Jamaican agent Coral Jr. is supposed to be the son of the original Coral from Dr. No. And the novel For Live and Let Die featured the original Coral and was set before Dr. No, where the character died. However, as Dr. No was filmed first, Coral in Live and Let Die was changed to Coral Jr. To avoid continuity problems. Also, this is the first James Bond film to use the word shit. There's a little sidebar right there. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I thought this was a really enjoyable, entertaining, a really solid Bond movie. I mean, great performance by Roger Moore. I really, again, dig the vibes of the voodoo culture. Like, the film definitely has a super stitious kind of undertones and sort of vibe. Again, because you kind of dive into that supernatural element throughout the movie with the voodoo culture and what have you. Plus, you have a good array of villains, good action scenes, in the middle of the film, and then at the end, where Bond kills Kanaga. Again, some nice locations where you have the fictional island of San Monique in the Caribbean setting, and Roger Moore and his quips. And so, yeah, I mean, again, it's a great debut for Roger Moore, and I would say definitely when I talk about favorites, this will definitely be in there. So that's my review of Live and Let Die. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for The Man with the Golden Gun. So yeah, we'll be talking about that next. But thank you for watching, and have a good day.